So it's time to get some practice with the concepts and commands I've covered in this section. So of course you don't have to do any of this, but I highly recommend you do, especially if you're new to Git and you haven't seen any of these commands before. This is an opportunity for you to get some practice. It's a simple exercise in terms of the content. The actual files we'll be working with are based around two shopping lists. So there is a link in the resources for this video. I recommend you open it up. It contains a link to this exact page that has the instructions I've typed up. So there are steps, a step-by-step set of instructions for what I'd like you to do, starting with make a new folder called shopping, initialize a new Git repo inside of it, make sure you're not already in a Git repo, and then make a new file called yard.txt, then make a second file, groceries.txt, make a commit that includes both empty files. So a commit with both of those files, and then I tell you the exact message you should use. And if you deviate from that, it's not a big deal. But anyway, I'm just putting it there if you want to follow that. And then make some changes in the yard.txt file. We actually add some content, and then we add some content to the groceries, and you can just copy and paste from here. And then make a second commit, including only the changes from the groceries file. And the message for the commit should say, add ingredients for tomato soup. Then make a second commit, including only the changes from the yard file. And that message should say, add items needed for garden box. And then next up, we're going to make some changes to both files. We're going to add this line to the end of the yard file. And then in the garden file, we're going to change the quantity. It did say 2 bags of potting soil. We're going to update that to 3. And then once both of those are done, we'll make a commit that includes both of those files. And then you should use this message. And then the very last thing is to use some unnamed Git command that we've covered to display all of those commits. And we should see 3 commits. So that's a set of instructions, hopefully straightforward. But don't feel bad if you don't remember the exact commands, right? You can always reference them. It's more about making sure you have the conceptual flow down of how you make a commit. Okay. So I highly recommend you try it and stop the video now because I'm going to just go through the process myself if you want to watch. But again, I really strongly as I can through this pre-recorded video, recommend that you try this on your own. And then if you get stuck, you can check out this solution. Okay, so step 1, create a new folder called shopping and init a repo inside of it. So I have an empty folder called exercises and I'll make a shopping directory and cd into it. Make sure it's not in a Git repo. I'm not. So I'll run git init to make me that new repo. Then it says make a new file called yard.txt. So I'll do that from the command line, although you don't have to. But here we are, touch yard.txt. And then make another new file called groceries. Okay, touch groceries.txt. And then it says, make my first commit that includes both empty files, and then use this message. And I'll just copy that message, I guess. Okay. So now, if I run git status, there are 2 files that I currently are not, or my repo is currently not tracking. So before I can make a commit, I can't make a commit right now. There's nothing to commit. I need to stage those files. So I'll do a git add groceries and yard. I can do them separately or just in a single line. Now I type git status. Great. I'll do a git commit because that was the next instruction using this message I copied. Create yard and groceries lists. All right, so now I have 1 commit down. The next instruction says in the yard file, add these 2 lines. So I'll copy that and I need to open the yard file. Technically, I could do this from the terminal, but I'm going to use, you could just go to your text editor and open the terminal, or open the file rather, or I can use the code shortcut if I'm using VS Code and you've configured that, code, and then I'll just do dot. That will open the entire directory for me in VS Code. And here it is, I have my 2 files. So in the yard file, I'm going to paste this, 2 bags of potting soil, 1 bag of worm castings, and then in the groceries file, I'm going to copy and paste this. Okay, and save both of them. And then it says make a new commit including only the changes from the groceries file. And this is what the message should be. So we made changes to 2 files, but we only want these changes in this first commit. So that's the groceries file. if we do git status, we see both of them have been changed. I'm going to add, I'll clear just to put this up top, git add groceries. And that's all I'm going to add. So this will be included in the commit, and I'll make that commit. I'll use -m and just do it from the command line in one go. Add ingredients for tomato soup. And now we see that we still have those changes from yard that are not committed. That's the next piece. Make a second commit, including only the changes to the yard file. And it should have this message: add items needed for garden box. So I'll copy that, git add the yard file, git commit -m. There we go, add items needed for garden box. And now we have no uncommitted changes. Okay, and then the next step is to add the following line to the end of the groceries file. So we need to buy a couple of seed potatoes, just potatoes that I'll buy from the grocery store. So it goes in the groceries list. Okay, and then also I need to update the yard file so that it says 3 bags of potting soil instead of 2. So there we go. And of course, now if I type git status, 2 files, both of them, have been modified. So now it says make a commit that includes both of those files. So changes to both files with this message: add items needed to grow potatoes. Okay, so I can do a git, well, wait, I don't know why I did another status, I just did that. I can do a git add and then do both file names, or I can do a git add dot to just add everything, which is these 2 files. And then I'll do my git commit -m with that message. Okay. And then the last piece, unfortunately, I just realized there's a small typo here, is to use an unspecified command that we learned to display a list of all the commits. This should actually say 4 because we've made 4 commits. The first empty one, that's the one I forgot to count when I made this. So let me update that very quickly. That should say 4 instead of 3. Let's refresh. And there we are. You should see 4. Okay, so let's try this. Let's go over here, and the command is git log. And I should now see 4 commits. Here's the first one, create the empty lists. Here's where I added to the grocery list for tomato soup ingredients. Here's what I added to the garden or the yard list. And then here's where I added to both of them. And that's the end of the exercise. I hope that you're able to go through that and not have to follow along with me step by step, although there's no shame in that either. Go get more practice with this throughout the rest of the course. This is really, really the bread and butter of Git. Add, commit, add, commit. We do it all day long, or at least many times a day. Okay,